Hi, welcome back. If you don't know me, I'm Anna, clinical psychology doctoral candidate. On this channel, we talk about real-life applications to psychology. Today, we're talking about a study on how personality and relationship quality can predict happiness. This is part of a new playlist we're calling Research Revealed. I know I mispronounced it in my last video on this where I called it Research Relayed, but it's Research Revealed is much better. And it's a new series on this channel dedicated to making scientific, peer-reviewed research accessible to the general public and helping you apply it to your real life. So today's study is by Demir from 2007, looking at romantic relationship quality and personality as predictors of happiness in emerging adults, which are considered 18 to 29 years old, college-aged and beyond. The citation is in the description box if you want to check it out. So for a little bit of background, personality has been found to account for up to 50% of happiness. So who we are in terms of our personality tends to affect how happy we are to a pretty large degree. And emerging adults in particular are in a period of deep exploration, and they're forming and maintaining relationships for possibly the first time in their life, and that can really shape their identity and the way that they explore their own personality as well. Romantic relationships in that age group tend to be more serious, more committed, more long-term than they were when they were in high school or during their adolescent years. And so this study utilized the big five to measure personality. Those are openness to new experiences, conscientiousness, extroversion, or its polar opposite, introversion, agreeableness or disagreeableness, and neuroticism. And I'm going to talk about this and the limitations. I personally don't love the big five, but so Demir talks about how in past research, high extroversion and low neuroticism are usually associated with happiness. It makes sense for neuroticism. Neuroticism essentially is negative affectivity. So you have more negative emotions in your day-to-day life than people with low neuroticism. It might make you more prone to anxiety disorders, depression, and other mental issues, or rage, or things like that. Extroversion, I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with introversion. I think the US is definitely a place where extroverts are considered the norm and introverts are kind of pathologized. I have a whole video on this, check it out up here. But it kind of makes sense that extroversion would lead to greater happiness because social connectedness is important for happiness. And like I mentioned, if you're living in a place where it's kind of an extrovert's world, as an introvert, you're probably going to struggle a little bit more. And these are trends, obviously. Like, just because you have a certain constellation of traits, that doesn't mean that you're doomed. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily unhappy. These are just patterns across the general population. Conscientiousness, agreeableness, and openness to experiences are also slightly positively correlated with happiness. So conscientiousness can lead to greater academic or professional or emotional success. Makes sense that that would make you happier. Agreeableness means you're more likely to be liked by others and to form positive relationships. Again, makes sense that that would make you happier. And openness to experiences can help you branch out and grow and adapt. So that, of course, makes sense. So the present study assumes that close relationships can be a source of happiness as well, and personality can definitely also affect relationship quality. Extroversion and agreeableness have been shown to positively affect romantic relationship quality. This makes sense since the two are pretty strongly linked to how you're going to interact with other people. If you're more extroverted, you might be more prone to seeking energy by interacting with other people. If you're more agreeable, you might be behaving in ways that might make you more likely to be liked in return. So both of these things fare pretty well in the context of a romantic relationship. Neuroticism and openness to experience have been shown to be negatively related to romantic relationship quality. So the more neurotic you are, you might tend to be more anxiously attached, paranoid, gloomy to be around, and understandably, your partner might not like that so much. People who are high in openness to experience might be more prone to impulsivity or risk-taking or wandering eyes, all of which can pose an issue in romantic relationships. And there's no consistent relationship between conscientiousness and relationship constructs in past research. There's also evidence suggesting that close relationships have the potential to contribute to happiness regardless of a person's personality. So let's talk about the findings of this study. And there are actually two studies because Demir made one and then made another that replicated the first study and also kind of extended its scope. So for study one, the research question was, does the quality of romantic relationships contribute to the happiness of emerging adults above and beyond just the influence of a person's personality. So the findings were that romantic relationship quality was positively related to happiness. People with better relationships were happier. Makes sense. High extroversion and low neuroticism were also related to happiness, and high agreeableness and high conscientiousness were found to be significant correlates of happiness as well. Extroversion and agreeableness were positively correlated with romantic relationship quality, whereas neuroticism was negatively evaluated. Openness to experience was not actually linked to relationship quality, which was kind of inconsistent with past research. And the quality of romantic relationships contributed to the happiness of emerging adults above and beyond the influence of just one person's personality. Study 2, like I said, replicated the findings of study 1 with different instruments. In the study, happiness was assessed in terms of global life satisfaction, the presence of positive affect, and the absence of negative affect. It also extended the findings of the first study to include identity formation as a potential moderator of the relationship between relationship quality and happiness. Successful identity formation is related to psychological well-being and promotes the formation of close relationships with other people. There tends to be a strong correlation between having your identity be formed and well-being. So one of their hypotheses in the second study was that companionship and self-validation would be the features of the relationship quality that would emerge as the strongest predictors of happiness. So they said that particularly companionship and self-validation were parts of a romantic relationship that would most strongly predict how happy a person was. Emotional security and companionship were the strongest components of relationship quality that predicted happiness. So not companionship and self-validation, but companionship and emotional security. Emotional security, as assessed in the present study, refers to the romantic relationship providing comfort and giving reassurance in new and threatening situations. So perceiving your romantic partner to provide emotional security might actually promote feelings of positive affect and therefore make you happier. Companionship also makes sense that would increase happiness, since what a person does and with whom they do it has the potential to change the set point of happiness. Interestingly, intimacy did not predict happiness, and it might play a role in overall relationship satisfaction, but not necessarily for determining someone's happiness. Identity formation was also positively correlated to happiness and romantic relationship quality. So the more sure you are of who you are as a person, the more happy you're going to be, and the happier you're going to be in a relationship. And not only that, but identity formation also moderated the relationship between romantic relationship quality and happiness. So emerging adults were happier when they experienced positive romantic relationships with high levels of identity formation as well. The quality of romantic relationships contribute to happiness above and beyond what simply personality might. The researcher concluded that even though a person might have certain dispositions to be happy, experiencing high quality romantic relationships can absolutely make a difference in their happiness. 3 to 6% of the variance in happiness was accounted for by the quality of the romantic relationship, above and beyond just personality. So this is a lot of quantitative mumbo jumbo, but what does this mean for us? How do we apply this to our lives? If you're an emerging adult, or I would suspect a lot of these findings are probably true for people in other age ranges as well, but we can't really assume that based on this study alone. And assuming that you're not someone who's a romantic relationship quality can be a great source of happiness. So if you're wanting to boost your happiness, it could be helpful to find a relationship, especially one that's high in emotional security, someone that makes you feel safe and comfortable, and companionship, someone who spends time with you in a lot of different contexts. It will also really improve your chances of being happy and being in a happy relationship if you have a well-formed identity. There are a lot of different theory models for identity formation, and they depend a lot based on whether you belong to a minority group or if not. So there's no real one-size-fits-all shoe when it comes to how your identity is supposed to form. But what I will say is that in order to have a well-formed identity, typically you have to come to a place where you accept yourself for who you are, you know who you are and what your different identities are, you accept the good and the bad, you're unashamed about who you are, and so forth. For example, I knew someone who was not out as a sexual minority yet, and this person was quite toxic in their romantic relationship. Like, they were someone that did not treat their partners very well. And once they actually came out and were open about their sexual orientation, they have a better quality relationship. They seem to have come to a place where they accept themselves more and they treat their partner better as well. So I really do think that being sure of who you are as a person and accepting yourself can absolutely affect the quality of your relationship, can absolutely affect the quality of your happiness, and affects your happiness by affecting the quality of your relationship. And then the personality traits that are associated with greater happiness are higher extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and lower neuroticism. I'm of the belief that there's no good or bad personality to have. They're all adaptive in some situations and maladaptive in others, and they all exist because of specific functions that they're meant to serve. I'm also of the belief that personality can absolutely be changed, maybe not drastically, but it can be modified, and the studies do kind of show that's possible. It's very difficult, but with a lot of effort and a lot of self-awareness, it's absolutely possible. But I also don't think that you have to change your personality to be a happier person. And so it's kind of tricky. I don't know if there's really too much of a real life application here, because it's, like I said, difficult to change your personality and who you intrinsically are. But if I were to guess why these traits are associated with happiness, I'd suggest the following things to borrow from each of them. In terms of extroversion, try to be friendly with people, try to have healthy levels of assertiveness, don't shy away from social interactions. In terms of agreeableness, be warm to people, cooperate with them, be modest, be kind, give back, act in ways that help society, not just yourself. In terms of conscientiousness, practice discipline, strive to achieve great things, be reliable, take your responsibilities seriously. In terms of neuroticism, have good self-confidence, push through fear and anxiety, be secure in yourself as a person, independently of what other people think, stay positive and stay grateful. I know these are much easier said than done, but if you want some real life applications for what sorts of personality traits would make you happier, these are some tips I think not a lot of people would disagree with. The limitations of the study, first of all, it's just for emerging adults, so we can't generalize these findings to people of all ages. It's cross-sectional, so we can't necessarily infer that there's causality there. Like I said, it has the Big Five personality measure, which I don't love. Personally, I think the sub-traits of the Big Five are very interesting, but just the Big Five, I think they're too vague for us to truly gauge what a person is really like just based on 5 traits. It's also sampled from psychological students. In case you've never taken undergrad psychology, usually it's a Psych 101 thing that for class credit, you either write papers or participate in these studies. There are some people who have ethical qualms with this, like, are people really consenting to participate in this research if they don't have that much of a choice? And it also is convenient sampling, and so that's not necessarily going to have huge external validity either. Another limitation is that the questionnaire that they used in study 2 was initially created for friends and then translated to romantic partners, which could reduce its validity because they're using it to talk about a type of relationship that the measure was not initially created for. It also leaves defining romantic relationships up to the participants, so participants have to decide what exactly they're talking about, which leaves some operational ambiguity. It doesn't assess for conflict in romantic relationships, which is a future direction that research could go in, and there were more women than men in the sample, so again, probably not the most representative. And I actually would wonder how gender interacts with all these different things that we spoke about today. So I hope this was interesting and helpful to you. If it was, I would really appreciate a like or a comment sharing your thoughts on it, whatever your thoughts might be. And I'll see you soon.